So let's go over the planners, right? We have this command here. We've been putting together planners while we've been leveling this entire time. Exclamation LF in the chat. And then we have 1 to 54. This is the starting one. And then at 55, we have access to new skills that unlock. All the skills unlock at level 55. So I made a new planner for 55 to 80. And then sometime after 80, not necessarily right at 80, but sometime whenever you have the Wilt weapons made and you have 3 Wiping Family Silver bullets, then you can switch to Wilt based. And I will also release a video on YouTube showing the crafting process for how to make those Wilt weapons. So first we go over the planners. The first planner here, we're starting off. This one should be the most straightforward one. And I didn't even include any gear here because it's pretty straightforward. I mean, you're just using whatever you can pick up at first. You're crafting and using like energy, not even energy shield mods. It's just whatever, right? It doesn't really matter. 1 to 55 to me. 1 to 54 really didn't matter to me. At least for me. Maybe it's just because I'm a better gamer than you guys are, but I'm kidding. Yeah, the main thing here is trying to get sacrificial blades that have flat damage. That's like the biggest help. Like flat damage is the most useful early on, right? Before you have a lot of other damage increases. So before you have higher skill levels, the flat damage is just worth way more. The Fool's Dagger here is a sacrificial blade. The reason you're going for a sacrificial blade over a dagger is because daggers don't have spell mods. You need to use a sacrificial blade in order to get spell mods. And then we're also using a sacrificial blade because we want to be able to use Spiral Strike. So sacrificial blades is what you're going for. The problem is when you first make a Carino and you start leveling with Carino, there's this weird smart loot system where you'll notice that they only give you ranged weapons. They're only dropping you ranged weapons for you at first. They don't drop you the other weapons until you're like in maps or pretty close to maps, I think. So the way you get this, the way I got this at least, was through black gold. As soon as you start to get black gold, go to the black market, use the black gold, and sacrificial blades will show up fairly easy. I was able to get 2 of these 4 daggers right away, basically, through black gold. So that's how you get the sacrificial blades. Until then, you're kind of screwed. When you're playing a spellcaster at first with Carino, you're kind of screwed because you're going to keep getting ranged weapons that really aren't going to be helping you. But you can start with Lightning Shot. You can stick with Lightning Shot if you want. At level 15, you can do Split Firebolt, and then you get sacrificial blades. So Split Firebolt, it becomes purchasable at the shop at level 15. Wind Projectile, Solar Projectile, Multiple Projectile, Elemental Fusion. This is all straightforward. You're using damage increase supports. Scorch is your curse. Fixate for extra damage. You're basically hitting both of these skills at once against elites and bosses. You just hit him with both of these, and these are both instantly cast, no cast animation. So you can just hit both of these while you're casting Split Firebolt, right? So Blink, cooldown reduction for speed, and you're also using Spiral Strike for speed. So these are both your mobility skills here. And then you can just fit in these 3 ores at first, right? And for the starting planner here, I only put in the mana regen nodes here because I'm just showing that this is kind of a priority. So a lot of people are having issues with mana starting off, right? To solve your mana issues starting off, the very least you should have is you should at least have Magical Source and this 60% mana regen. This should be enough. For most people, this should be enough. If it's not enough, there are some Spell Pack Spirit Pets you should be using. You can use Spell Pack Spirit Pets that also have some more mana regen nodes. You can get even more. You can get another 60 mana regen, right? If you need to. There's also going to be some solutions for mana in the talent trees. So Beacon, right? Beacon you get once you spend 10 points in the first tree here, Goddess of Knowledge. We are going to be going a standard spellcaster template basically for this, right? And for season 3, we just got Spellburst. It was a huge addition. It's basically a spellcaster season. Spellburst was huge because sometime at like level 10 or whatever, when you get Beacon, you're basically getting free spell bursts. It means you're throwing out 3 extra casts every 2 seconds. And at first you're only casting like 3 or 4 times every 2 seconds anyways. So you're almost like doubling your DPS just by hitting this node. Just by clicking on this major node, you're almost doubling your DPS. It's really big, really big early on. So this makes the leveling process way easier for if you're going a spellcaster route. The reason we're going a spellcaster route here, right, is because if you're thinking about transitioning into like Ring of Blades, or you even think about sticking with Split Firebolt, Split Firebolt can carry you through the entire game. It's endgame capable. It's very powerful. You can have a lot of DPS. You could just do it the entire time, but it's also just an easier transition if you're going to go into Ring of Blades because it's also a spell projectile, right? So it's easier to switch to. So if you're thinking about things like that, then it's better to do this than say like an attack-based bow build, in my opinion. And with spell bursts, it's just so much stronger. These are pretty straightforward. Just follow the tree. You can get the +1 to spell skill level first and then come back for the max spell burst, the spell burst stuff later, because you're going to want to come and play safe. Eventually, play safe is going to be huge. I was able to eventually get my spell burst charge speed. My full charge on my spell burst was 0.55 seconds. So every 0.55 seconds, I was activating spell burst, right? Which was just a huge DPS increase. This one, it doesn't really help too much inner side, but it is still kind of helpful because we are stacking some energy shield regain for sustainability. And then you're going into Warlock Tree. I guess we don't have points in the Warlock Tree yet at like 54, right? So this is the start. All right, so let's move on. Let's move on to the second tree. At level 55, you unlock a bunch of skills. So this is where things kind of change. You get access to things like Magic Dash, Psychic Surge, Psychic Burst. So this Psychic Surge, Psychic Burst is for to invest more into the spell burst, right? To get more efficiency out of your spell burst. So that's what you're switching up there. You're adding in the spell burst, more spell burst stuff. What else are we doing? Don't forget to put in your Harden for the Harden buff on your Spiral Strike. And then eventually here we are adding in Seal Conversion, right? Seal Conversion with Elemental Amp. And this might not fit for you right away. The reason why it's not fitting for you right away, you're not able to activate this, is because you don't have mana cost reduction nodes yet. So to make this fit, we're going to get mana cost reduction nodes in the sealed mana reduction here, right? We're going to get this in Goddess of Knowledge here, these points, these nodes here. And then you're also in Warlock Tree, you're going to get these nodes here, right? And then you also need to level up your seal conversion because as seal conversion levels up, it reserves less. So you might need to get that leveled up in order for this to activate this. So we move this to seal. We get Elemental Amp and Seal Conversion. We move Precise Projectiles and Energy Fortress up here with Magical Source, and we're gaining Euphoria on hit. And this is giving us our Mana Boil with Mania, and it's also giving us Arcane Circle. So that's the setup there. We gained a bit there from the auras. Eventually you want to go around the market and buy a Hero Memory Effect relic with 3 open engram sockets. You should have 3 eventually. I kind of just gave a general idea of what you're looking for here. Things like max mobility charges is helpful, as is additional damage. You want additional damage like this one. These 2 mods here are additional damage, right? I started putting in some gear here for the 55 plus planner. Light Hunter belt I was able to buy for 5 FE. Gives you quite a lot of energy shield, and it gives you that 25% additional spell damage at low life. We are now going low life. This is a low life switch because we are sealing all of our life away with this link here, right? So now we're low life. We're getting that extra damage from Light Hunter belt. You're also starting to craft gear. You're trying to craft gear. Mainly, most of the gear, like the helm, chest, gloves, belt, boot, you're trying to get energy shield mods, right? You're trying to get your energy shield up there because we're reserving our life now. We're getting energy shield from Energy Fortress, but you do need some mods on your equipment. Your weapons are going to be your primary damage mods. These two rings, you're going to have the 2 rings that are similar to this, and 2 weapons that are similar to this, where you're getting, again, the flat damage. Eventually, you're going to see the Wise Man Dagger drops. You're going to see the Wise Man Dagger drops happening in your maps. Make sure you pick those up and you start crafting these. These are the best sacrificial blade base that we're going to be using. With the flat spell damage early on, as well as like, we're also scaling spell crit and damage on a lot of pieces, right? So spell crit damage, cast speed, flat damage, all those are good for equipment. For the tree, we're finally in the Warlock tree. We're going to get Indifference and Off the Beaten Track here. Also to note is the energy charge here. The energy charge here will give you an extra dash charge. And then you also have magical dash. So you actually have 3 blink charges, which makes, you know, mapping quite a bit zoomier. You're getting all res. I also put in the all res nodes here. These are pretty important. So after that 60% mana, you're also making sure that you get that all res here and all res here. Okay. I think, let me see. Everything else here should be pretty straightforward. Oh, don't forget we're getting that +1 max spell burst in Magister. So this is going to give us 4 spell burst instead of 3. It's 1 here, 3 with Beacon, we get 4. So basically you're casting 5 casts at a time with the spell burst. And you're getting, you know, this additional damage on your spell burst. And Play Safe is also giving you faster charge. And the non-spell burst attacks are going to be doing 50% less damage, but those are a smaller portion of our damage. We're kind of just going all in on spell burst damage at this point. Alright, so at 80 or whenever you can craft the Wilt daggers, the Wilt sacrificial blade weapons, right, we're going to the next planner. And this one is the Wilt change. This is the Wilt swap. Now, the max roll planner here didn't have the memories here in the database, but these are supposed to be the Wiping Family silver bullets, right? The legendary memories that give you reload speed. So you need 3 of those. And then you also need, you should probably also get some hero memory effect on your relics so you get even more reload speed. So there's going to be a balance here. You need fast enough reload speed to reload 6 ammo every time you cast your every time you cast your spell, right? Every time you cast Split Firebolt. So that depends on your cast speed. So the more reload speed you have, the more cast speed you can have, right? These are the sacrificial blades I'm talking about. Guild Short Blade is the best base for it. The most important stat on this is that scale damage to base build damage. This is required. You need to have some sort. Now, it doesn't need to be tier 1. You can try to get like maybe 30% or at least 30 or 40% of skill damage to base build damage on each weapon for you to be ready. So that's the most important stat here that you need. And then the additional ailment damage is the strongest mod here because it's additional damage. It's a separate multiplier. And then the rest are just other damage increases on the weapon. So you should have 2 of these. And then now once you switch to Wilt, you no longer need crit strike or crit damage. So the rest of the gear can also kind of change a bit. You can start to get like Affliction Effect or Reaps and that kind of thing on your gear, but it's still energy shield based. Now we dropped the Light Hunter belt in favor for a crafted belt. You can craft something. Now obviously it's not going to be like looking exactly like this, but this just gives you an idea of what the mod should be. But the Light Hunter belt is dropped because Light Hunter gives you spell damage, and spell damage does not work with Wilt damage. Remember, we're not going spell damage anymore. We're not going crit chance or crit damage. Even projectile damage, elemental damage, projectile damage, those aren't going to work. With Wilt, what scales with Wilt is dot damage, ailment damage, just generic damage, and erosion damage. Right, that's what we were looking for to scale with Wilt. So now we have split Firebolt and we have more. So you're getting some base Wilt damage from the weapons. And you're also getting some base Wilt damage here on the added erosion. This was newly buffed to give quite a bit more. Base, it says base decay, but it's actually, I don't know why the wording changes. Base Wilt damage here. You should very easily, like as soon as I had like two like somewhat like low, like starter weapons and added erosion damage, I was already hitting like 500 or 600 base Wilt damage. You can check this in the character menu here, in the info menu here. You can just check your split Firebolt and you can get your base Wilt damage, right? This was already 500 to 600 pretty easily, so that's kind of what you're going for. So we're switching the curse to entangled pain because what you're doing, it's the additional dot damage here. And then we are using Scorching Pulse to reap. So this is a pretty big reap. This is a really big reap actually. And we actually have 2 charges of this because of the extra energy charge in the Warlock tree is also going to get applied to this as well as your blink. So you're going to be able to have 2 Scorching Pulse charges to use. And once you hit an enemy with some split Firebolt and stack some Wilt, you hit this and a lot of things just blow up and die. Like it does this huge amount of like burst damage all of a sudden. And you'll get used to like how much actually like you need to stack before you can blow them up. But like usually like now I'm mapping in T7s and I just like cast split Firebolt against the final boss for like a second and just hit Scorching Pulse and they just poof. They like go from like 90% HP to a 0 just by hitting it. So this is pretty big for mapping. It just like gets all that burst damage for you to kill things instantly. You use it against elites as well while you're mapping. So it's like you hit an enemy with the curse while you're casting split Firebolt, and then when you have that critical damage, you hit Scorching Pulse. Auras, these are the same. We're using Deep Pain instead of Elemental Amplification now with the seal conversion. And now what do we had? We had Euphoria on hit, right? But Mana Boil and Arcane Circle are no longer useful for us for Wilt. So what do we do now? We do an auto defense and we actually gain survivability instead here. So we're gaining a Frost Shield and Delayed Pain. These are reducing physical damage and fire damage for us. And Delayed Pain, the injury buffer prevents you, like helps you from getting like instantly one shot. And then cooldown reduction. Once you get your auto defense up to like level 20, it should be basically like 100% uptime on these with cooldown reduction. Yeah, once you level these, both of these to level 20, it should just be constantly recast for you automatically. And this is a really big change here, right? So switching from the spell base, we went the Goddess of Knowledge. Now we're going Goddess of Deception. So you have to respec your entire trees. You should have enough points. Make sure you check your Oblivion points. Make sure you use the ones in your inventory. But you should have enough points by now to respec your entire tree. So you're going Goddess of Deception now, and we're doing like damage and attack cast speed. There's some Wilt chance here. Excuse me. Actually, you don't even need the Wilt chance here. Like you don't really need it. So I'll explain. Like you don't need the we don't need to go Wilt chance, because eventually here in Warlock tree, you're gonna get Dirty Tricks. We're gonna use Dirty Tricks here because Dirty Tricks is gonna give us a guaranteed Wilt. Every hit's gonna be guaranteed to apply Wilt. And the reason we're doing this is because it's really hard to get 100% Wilt chance without Memory Daggers. Memory Daggers have 50% Wilt chance. So once you have Memory Dagger, once you have even one Memory Dagger, it's kind of easy to get to that 100% from there, from 50%. But without it, it just makes more sense to just guarantee it through Dirty Tricks for now, and then you can ignore Wilt chance for now, right? You don't have to worry about Wilt chance. But we're also going to use Blur, and we're going to use... You could use the Plague to help spread, but damage-wise, Windwalk is better here. And then we're going to start scaling Blur. Subtle Impact. We're getting Daze. more or less is more dot damage. There's also still some sealed mana nodes here, so pay attention to those. We're getting some reap stuff for like the scorching pulse. And then we need to, this is our only affliction right now, so you need to get this. This is going to be starting to stack your affliction. Affliction was buffed this patch in season 3, so now it does twice as much added additional damage. It gives you double damage basically when you stack affliction to 100. So eventually it just keeps stacking. If for the longer boss fights and such, it will play more of a role in those fights. And we're still sticking to the Warlock tree, of course. We're still getting that, energy charge. I'm very fond of the energy charge for pretty much every build. This is a really important node here. You really need to make sure you get this final medium talent, because it gives you that your wilt damage is going to ignore enemy resistance, right? So this is a really big node here. So make sure you respect all free trees. Pack Spirit, don't make the same mistake I made where I was using spell-based pets, and then I was still using spell-based pets with my Wilt build for a while. Remember, spell damage doesn't work anymore. We need to switch it to, if you have persistent type pets, you can start to use those. Or you could just use whatever you want. Like if you want to use defensive pets or drop pets or whatever, that's fine too. Typically, I don't really try to do drop pets until later on, until I'm really, powerful. I've powered up my character and I have a lot of damage and survivability already. Then I start to use drop pets. One more thing here I need to mention with the Wilt build. There's a frozen lightning here. You can use this because it will basically stack that slow, and with a lot of effect from a lot of blur effect, because blur is also increasing our crowd control. We have the node here. Days, we get a plus 100% control effects from blur, and blur effect will also increase that further. So if you're stacking blur effect with this, you can actually increase this control effect of slow. And it's also the reason why we have the control effect thing with blur. We're also increasing our blinding here. That's why we picked up blinding. And then we also picked up paralyze. So we're doing paralyze, blind, and even slow as an option here, being increased by a blur effect. But this slow can basically, like, against elites, it can really just like essentially freeze them in place eventually. They just can't even hit you. They can't do anything. They just freeze. So this can be helpful for some people if you need it. Really nice if you're kind of struggling against certain enemies. If you're kind of struggling surviving, it's nice. The problem is that it doesn't really provide anything else. The elemental damage doesn't help. We get some lightning and cold resistance. The conversion doesn't help, and we get a little int. So we get a little int, lightning and cold resistance. But for the most part, everything else on the ring is not a really good ring stat-wise. It just brings that slow to the table. So it's up to you whether or not you want to have like 2 well-crafted rings, or you want to sacrifice one of those crafted rings for that slow effect on frozen lightning. For me, I used it for a while, but for me, I just found that I'd rather just have 2 crafted rings. So the way to play it is just like hit Entangled Pain, right? While you're casting Split Firebolt, you can hit Entangled Pain at the same time because it has no cast time. So you just curse enemies that way. And then once you have enough Wilt stacks, you just hit Scorching Pulse. If it's an elite or a boss, you just blow them up, right? That's pretty much it. And then like the mobility is obviously Spiral Strike into Blink kind of thing. Oh, one more thing here. So I mentioned earlier once you start using Desperate Measures with the Wilt base, you switch to Desperate Measures, right? And basically you switch to Desperate Measures from Spellburst. Spellburst doesn't work with Desperate Measures. I tested it. We were hoping it might work together, but they don't work together. So Spellburst, Desperate Measures only applies to the first skill cast in Spellburst. It doesn't also snapshot and apply to the additional cast from Spellburst. So unfortunately, it doesn't work as I was hoping it would. So that's why we do Spellburst with the hit-based build with split Firebolt, and then we drop spell burst and just use desperate measures for the Wilt base, right? And once we do that, we need enough reload speed to keep up with our cast speed. So we need 6 ammo here to be reloaded. This needs to reload for every cast when we're holding it down. So the way to test this is you do hold down your split Firebolt, and then you look to make sure you see all 6 ammo flashing. This is all 6 flashing. You can see them, they turn red and then they turn white again, right? So you can see that they're all reloading for every shot. Now, if you don't see all 6 ammo getting reloaded while you're holding this down, then you need to adjust. You either need to get a higher hero memory effect relic. Here I have 37%. If you get this higher, then you're going to get more reload speed with your silver bullets, right? With your 3 silver bullets. You can do that, or you're going to have to lower your cast speed. And adjusting your cast speed is pretty easy because we have all these nodes I picked up in talent trees. I picked up all these nodes for cast speed. We'll just change those nodes of cast speed into something else. We would remove those until we're able to keep up with the reloading. Yeah, so important note there, just you need to sync up your reload with your cast speed. So for example, I have the 37% hero memory effect, and my cast speed is 3.92 per second, and it's just about right for me. But adjust accordingly depending on what you're using. I mean, obviously, like, people are going to have different cast speed with their gear and such, and different reload speed with their hero memory effect relic. Alright, so yeah, that's pretty good. Traceless Pain is actually pretty good, I would say. Yeah, because it's a 5-second reap. It only happens once, but for clearing, this seems pretty good. So we'll do a run with this one. It actually one-shot some of these elites. Like, that one just died instantly. I didn't even need to use my Scorching Paws of that. So this guy, like, you can see that guy, he didn't die instantly, but he lost like 25% of their health, like, instantly there. For lesser enemies, obviously they're just gonna die instantly now with that. This judge here, like, we can see how much it does on the judge. But we also show like what the Scorching Paws will do against it. So if things don't die instantly to the Traceless Pain, then like this guy took only like 5% damage, right? But once we stack up the reaps, there's that big Scorching Paws following it. The problem is that the Traceless Pain, it seems like it's reaping right away at the beginning as soon as you hit them. So it's probably reaping like the first stack or first set of stacks of Wilt. And it doesn't happen anymore. It only happens once on the target. So it's good for like some of that instant damage for weaker enemies. And then we have Scorching Paws to finish them off if we need to stack more Wilts. Pretty good, I think. So then against the boss here, Curse and Scorching Paws. That's when Scorching Paws becomes useful. Stack Wilt, Scorching Paws. And the Traceless Pain is really good for mapping here, for instantly killing some lesser enemies and even some elites. But it is going to be like it's going to lower your overall like DPS. So like for like pinnacle bosses, longer boss fights, you're going to have less DPS for that with the Traceless Pain. So you can always do a swap with it. Let's try Traveler real quick. Open Sesame. Here we go. Traveler. Just switched to Wilt today. We have about 140 mil DPS with this. Switch to the Wilt Firebolt setup. Oh, easy. Look at the reaping. You see that the health when it all of a sudden it just chunks at the health? That's the Scorching Paws being used. So we're stacking the Wilt with split Firebolt, and then we reap it with the Scorching Paws, and it does a crap ton of damage. Here we go. Watch the burst damage here. Oh! Hold on. Okay, watch now. Oh my god, stop moving. You saw the wrong burst. You saw the wrong person getting bursted. Oh, hold on. There it is. Traveler was like, I got some burst for you, buddy. Dude, I have 3.4k energy shield. Wait, why did I lose energy shield? Hold on. Hold up. Why am I lost a lot of energy shield. Oh, it's because we dropped the Light Hunter belt, right? Okay, but yeah, pretty easy. That was basically deathless. Let's just say that was deathless.